The Tales of series is a long one, with many entries and spin-offs dating all the way back to 1995 with Tales of Fantasia. I have played a few of the games in my lifetime, some fun and others not so much. After completing Tales of Fantasia Full Voice Edition for the Sony PlayStation Portable last year, I was excited to move on to the next game in the series to see what it had to offer. Today, we'll be looking at Tales of Destiny for the Sony PlayStation, the first game in the Tales of series to be officially released in the West. Produced by Wolf Team and published by Namco, the game hit both Japanese and American shelves between 1997 and 1998, leaving other English-speaking nations with tears in their eyes and forgotten longing on their lips. Like Fantasia, Destiny has also had multiple iterations, as well as a direct sequel, but for the purposes of this review, I played the original game on the Sony PlayStation. The game opens in the cargo hold of an airship where our hero Stahn Aileron is being rudely awakened from his beauty sleep by stern soldiers who claim that he is a stowaway. Brought before the captain of the ship, he is permitted to stay on board if he agrees to do manual labour. Taken to the upper deck, Stahn begins to undertake his assigned duty when suddenly enemies attack. Amidst the chaos, he slips away as his warden is slaughtered, and he wanders the corridors trying to find something to defend himself with. Inside one of the holds, he finds an ancient blade that calls out to him, a Swordian named Dymlos, that tells him he is its chosen wielder. After narrowly escaping the overrun ship, the duo find themselves crashed within foreign territory. Finding their way to the border town of Janos, accompanied by a man named Gar, Stahn and Dymlos attempt to cross the border, only to find that they need a passport. Eventually they meet Mary, who there's not something about, a woman who claims that her friend is trapped inside some ruins within the mountains. Agreeing to help, they find and free Ruti, who also holds a Swordian at White. From this point on, the group decide to join together, and the adventure begins. Doesn't this tale sound so exciting? Well, you're in for a treat. Whilst the initial introduction of our protagonist and the banter between him and his sword made for a good setup, I felt that overall the story wasn't too interesting and didn't really have me invested in the world or its people. Near the beginning of the game, you are forced into cooperating with a foreign nation by investigating a holy site on behalf of the king, where you learn that the relic that was held there was stolen. Whilst that part of the narrative itself got my hopes up, the following chase felt more like a game of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, where our heroes were always just one step behind the villain, with minor antagonists thrown in the way. These minor foes were severely underdeveloped and forgettable, providing nothing but a bag of flesh to beat over and over until they were no longer a threat. Even when the second act of the game begins, it thrusts you on a variety of fetch quests amidst dungeons with similar, annoying designs that made me wonder why I was even playing. If there was ever a game that I'd have put down if I wasn't reviewing it, it sure would be this one. On the other hand, considering the era that the game was released into, some of the characters are interesting and subvert the typical cast cliches that you would find in a JRPG. For example, the healer is a foul-mouthed Betty rather than a demure Mary Sue, and the character that's supposed to be the gentle soul ends up gaining some of the most powerful spells in the game. Stahn as a main character though wasn't all that interesting and didn't have a whole lot of depth to him, outside of the fact that he was a country layabout that had a penchant for sleeping in. Even the Swordians, who initially showed some potential, were just a bunch of fuddy-duddies that do almost nothing but argue with each other and don't really contribute much to the overall narrative until the last part of the game. I really would have liked to have seen a bit more from them, and for them to have been depicted as being wise sages rather than irritable old fogies, although this could have been something that was lost in the localization. Along the journey, the party will encounter Oberon Corporation, a large multinational conglomerate that capitalizes on the production of items from the trading of lens, shards of a meteorite that once fell from the heavens. In the different locations that you visit, you are generally put into contact with the representative of the Oberon Corporation, and are given a task by them that when completed will benefit the region, allowing your party to move on. One such task is freeing the region of Fitzgold from pirate attacks that are preventing trade. Unlike Fantasia, Destiny also has unique weapons and healing items developed by the Oberon Corporation that can be of use in battle, though I never used them myself. They looked a bit suspicious. During the game, I felt that the characters had little to no development, which wasn't helped by the localization. Additionally, the game is void of any skits which could have assisted to flesh out the world and its characters a bit more. I found that with each nation I reached, there was nothing of interest to make me want to explore them, or invest time into speaking to everyone. Where initially I started playing the game with the intent of speaking to all of the local citizens, they often had little of interest to say, and didn't provide any clues as to side quests that could be undertaken, or provided any items of interest as a reward for taking the time out to converse with them. It was just a complete waste of time. On the topic of items, treasure can be found in the various dungeons, though most of the time they are items that you really don't need or want. Just like Fantasia, Destiny limits the number of items that you can carry, capping it at 15. I often found myself maxed out on HP and TP healing items, which meant that some chests had to remain unopened, as I didn't have room in my inventory to stock the item that the treasure chest held. Food items also make a return, though rather than falling into a cooking minigame, they simply exist to be placed into a food sack that will restore the party member's health with every step you take outside a battle. I didn't find that this was useful or necessary, however, as there was always enough TP to heal characters outside a battle, and refilling the food sack every time it ran out just became a bother. I did like that each individual item in the menu had a visual representation though, which was something that a lot of JRPGs in the 90s didn't do. Random encounters will pull you out of the exploration of hostile areas. Battles take place on a singular plane in an action style where you can attack the enemy freely. However, only characters that are placed into the front or back row will attack automatically, unless they are a spellcaster or have a long-ranged weapon. In the beginning, I thought that the game was broken as my characters weren't attacking the enemy by themselves when they were placed in the middle rank. Unfortunately, it appears that this is a limitation of the game, and it's also one that Fantasia had, but circumvented by varying the range and capabilities of its fixed party members. You can pause the action by bringing up the menu and using it to issue commands to any of your characters. When a character casts a spell, much like the previous game, the battle will pause. I didn't mind this as it meant that I could get a breather in battles where the enemy was pummeling Stahn. On that note, positioning is also important, as if a character gets struck, their spellcasting animation is interrupted. Spells take more and more time to prepare the higher the level of the spell, so it's worth shielding your spellcasters with hardier frontrunners. Another tip is to use your caster's weakest spells to attack spellcasters that are beyond the reach of the enemy's front lines, as this will interrupt their spellcasting and prevent them from laying the smackdown on your party. As your characters and Swordians gain experience in battle, they will level up. Characters may learn skills known as special when they reach a new level, whereas Swordians will gain new and more powerful spells. Characters can also equip a variety of items to support them in battle, from a weapon through to defensive items and accessories. Swordians can equip an item known as a disc that can grant them either better statistics or sometimes new spells. It's worth playing around with the discs to find spells that suit your party and playstyle. Additionally, whilst there is a main cast of 4 characters, each with a Swordian, there are also 4 other characters that you can recruit into your party, though the maximum number of travel companions is 6, so you need to choose carefully from the 4 additional members who you want to take with you, all of whom you will have encountered at some point in the story. I ended up going with Mary and Carol as they had the biggest impact for me, and just fit the best of all the choices. There are a few additional things to do if you want to draw out the length of the game, although why you'd want to do that is beyond me, such as fight at the arena, race children around a town, or move boxes in the various harbour warehouses. I didn't partake in many of these activities, as none of them really were any different from what I'd already seen in Fantasia. On that topic, I was also severely disappointed that one of the gimmicks of the final dungeon was a carbon copy of a gimmick found in Fantasia's final dungeon. Whilst I am a fan of throwbacks, as you've probably heard me rave on about Final Fantasy XIV many times, and the callbacks it makes to previous titles, I don't like when the reference or callback is exactly the same, played out in the exact same manner. Anyway, the pixel art for Tales of Destiny was lovely, however, with detailed backgrounds and many of the houses in the various towns being structured in a way that made it look like a lived-in home, compared to other contemporaries that put 5 NPCs into one house, all sharing a single bed. Never understood that logic. Here the houses have functional kitchens and bathrooms, with little animated details making them feel alive and homely. In cutscenes, characters not participating in dialogue will sometimes have emotes above their heads, or be doing other things which made me chuckle. I really enjoyed the emotes and wish more 2D games used this feature. Enemy designs in battle were more cute than imposing, but it matched the general aesthetic of the game. Spell effects were flashy and satisfactory. There are a couple of animated cutscenes that were nice to watch, but I really wish there were more of them, as there were some scenes in the game that really would have benefited from them. The music was composed by Motoi Sakuraba, which is kinda strange to think considering that the music in this title wasn't anything to write home about. I remember playing the game in some locations and feeling like I'd have to turn down the music because it was either annoying or had incredibly short loops and I didn't want to bother my housemates. For a game that came out around the same era as Star Ocean: The Second Story, which was also composed by Sakuraba, the comparison in quality is astronomical. That's not to say that all the music is bad though. In particular, I like the song titled Solemn Castle, which plays in Darrelshire Castle, and really tricked me in a narrative sense. From the weight of the music and the sinister undertone that it has, I really thought that the game was going to pull an about-face on me with its plot. Sadly, it didn't. The church organ at the beginning of the piece, followed by a steady drum beat like a soldier's march, really lends weight to the strength and power that the country possesses. Within battle, characters will call out their attacks in Japanese, which was a nice touch, and I appreciated that it wasn't dubbed into English as later titles were. Though one thing that does get me with the localization is why was indignation translated as holy wrath? If you've gotten this far and couldn't really tell, I didn't really like this game, and I don't think Tales of Destiny is a game that will be for everyone. It certainly wasn't for me. Whilst there were some charming points and promising threads to the story, ultimately they didn't really lead anywhere exciting. From the boring chase around the world, to the uninspired multiple dungeons after the halfway point, the game may have you putting it down unfinished and forgotten. If you're a fan of the Tales of series, maybe you should pick it up just to see what it has to offer, but I wouldn't recommend it, as you could probably watch a review or a let's play and get the same experience. Though there is a remake that was done for the Sony PlayStation 2, so maybe that has something more to offer, and I will definitely be checking it out in the future. By the way, it's rare that I play a game that I end up finding more things that I dislike than like. If you've played and enjoyed Tales of Destiny, please tell me your thoughts about the game in the comments. This has been Venwa with a review of Tales of Destiny for the Sony PlayStation. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, look after yourselves and catch you all again next time. Take care and bye bye for now.